much talking with famous people. I have been just binging on YouTube. I've been binging my little butt off with the YouTubes. So the thing is, I found this channel that I really enjoy a lot. It's a super smart channel. It's like my new my new obsession kind of. It's called Veritasium. This channel. Um, and regardless of that channel, although that's significant in why I've decided to stream right now and address the subject. Um, my what I'm trying to get, I really am trying to figure something out right now. Like I'm trying to understand the universe, quote unquote, and regarding certain specific things, namely what's going specifically. If I were going to nutshell this idea that I'm trying to understand better as clearly as possible, it's what's going on epistemologically with people in the world now. Which is to say, as I experience various stories that people tell about the world, and that's really what we're all doing all the time, you know. We have shifted from what seems to be a movement towards increased clarity and certainty to this kind of volatility state change period, you know. You've got certain collections of individuals who, I guess, express their relationship with, you know, affirmations, negations, explanations, etc. They express those in terms of their distrust slash their intuition, right? Like, Happy 4th of July, Rachel, my beloved, beautiful, darling woman. Um, so it's like, again, I find myself drawn back, again and again to the question of the difference between these two fundamental issues: flat Earth, evolution. Right. This is the thing I'm trying to figure out. How and why is it that we have so much trouble, particularly getting beyond the wrongness of evolution? Very grateful to not be British today, too, Chris. Happy Independence Day, everybody. Happy America Day. May you enjoy your Uncle Sam, your hot dogs, your hamburgers, your fireworks, etc. So, this Veritasium guy, I forget what his name is, he really reminds me of myself in a lot of ways. He's much more mathy, sciencey than I am naturally. I'm more verbal than he is, you know. But he scored. I watched this one episode of his thing where it was about the IQ test, you know. He scored about the same as I scored on the SAT, and he got 134 on the IQ test. Like me, he's somewhat dismissive that the IQ test is meaningful at all because, number one, it doesn't measure anything specific, but instead measures a bunch of discrete intelligences and then creates a composite score that doesn't measure anything that's actual, right? It doesn't link to anything specific. So this guy understood that, made the same kinds of messaging that I'd been giving to everybody about IQ and the intelligence test forever, right? Of course, the other important thing to consider in this whole equation is the reality that people are more or less responsive to things, as far as I can tell. And this is the main insight I've had that I kind of wanted to talk about here, is that people are comfortable or not comfortable, agree or disagree with a given position articulated, um, predicated on whether it is consistent with their understanding of themselves. So it's like, if you understand yourself as somebody who's interested in hearing a bunch of ideation about a given topic, abstractions, philosophy, talk stuff, if you're interested in hearing those kind of things and knowing what's correct or what's incorrect, where to intuit doubt, where to intuit certainty, etc., then you're going to have a different relationship with any given piece of media that attempts to explain something than somebody who identifies themselves as an explainer themselves, right? I see myself as an extroverted intuitor. So accordingly, if somebody's like doing what I'm doing right now and just sort of yammering on about how other people are right or wrong or whatever, then I'm not gonna like that, right? That person's stepping on my toes in some sense, or taking on a role that I think I should have. And I think that a lot of people ultimately engage with ideas and stuff based on that more than anything else. It it may be the case that I predicate things based on that sometimes too, but I'd like to think that I'm both open-minded and rigorous. I'm willing to evaluate anything for legitimacy and correct about my evaluations. Of course, anybody's going to think that about themselves if they have a position on it at all. Very few people are going to think themselves not very correct. I don't plan on voting. Iron Lang considers me an elder brother from another mother. Cool. Chuck Norris did not own a stove, oven, or microwave because revenge is a dish best served cold. Sorry, Casey Jones. I mean, I will address the politics thing quickly, briefly, and then move back to what I want to talk about. Yes, Trump's preferable to Biden and the status quo, but they're both terrible, so let's not celebrate either of them. So, again, let me go back to this Veritisium. I'm not even sure how you say the channel, but Veritisium channel guy. So he's got the same position on me regarding intelligence tests. I was shocked to see finally somebody out there expressing what I've been expressing for a long time, which is we ought to have a lot of skepticism regarding dark matter and dark energy. But I also understand better now from watching his video why scientists will conclude that while it may not be ideal, the best existing explanation we have for a specific observed phenomenon is dark matter or dark energy. However, uh, it still doesn't really make any sense. And the nice thing is, this guy understands all of that, right? Like, the observation is this: if we look at a galaxy spinning, right, and our normal understanding of how things operate, the physics of things, you're going to have faster spinning in the middle and slower spinning on the outsides of it, right? And so, no, this isn't a matter of creationism versus evolution. Absolutely not, Michelle. What we don't want, what we want is a good explanation for things. Neither creationism nor evolution provides any kind of good explanation for things. And I will get back to the explanation regarding, some new points I want to make regarding how we can easily enough falsify evolution. But also to talk about how even each of us um, that people in the South don't approve of presidents with dementia. I don't know. What does that tell you, Canaan's husband? I mean, I don't think any decent American prefers um, a president who doesn't have mental competency over one who does but is shitty. I mean, obviously, Biden and Trump are both incredibly shitty. So whoever you say is the lesser of two evils, that's fine. But let's not lie to ourselves. Let's not pretend as though Trump's dramatically worse than Biden. I was eager to vote for anybody but Trump after Trump's first administration. And after Biden's term, I'm like, okay, well, I guess not anybody but Trump. So that's being correct about things. Um, so the thing is this. Okay, yeah, and we can disagree, as to which is less appalling, this pile of vomit or this amount of diarrhea. We can disagree about which is less appalling, which is more or less appalling, but we should all agree that both of them are fucking appalling. Okay, so if we're not talking about where we do agree there, then I don't want to talk about it. Well, I'm not a liberal, obviously, or conservative, or any of those other things. I'm a correctist. I'm correct about all things. But the topic here is not politics, it's science. So, um, well, I will reiterate for you, Queska, a president who is not mentally competent is fundamentally appalling, no matter who they may be, right? No, I mean, we don't have to have any political ideology to agree that one, a president who only represents the part of the population that votes for him and gives the middle finger to everybody else is unacceptable. We all agree, regardless of our politics, that a president who has dementia is unacceptable. There's nothing else to say about it. Okay? If you're obsessing over the fact that Trump is a better choice than Biden or Biden's a better choice than Trump, then you're part of the problem and shut the fuck up. All right, now let's get back to the topic. Actually, I'm gonna segue a bit here. I've been thinking in general, I just gotta stop live streaming because I try to talk about certain things. But the thing is, I'm not trying to have a conversation with everybody. I'm trying to explain certain things. I'm trying to provide information that people need to know and understand so that they themselves can make an informed decision about what positions to have on things, right? Instead of being empowered by this particular platform to do that, I am persistently, consistently disempowered in my ability to be cogent and explain things that need explaining. So now let's go on to smoking weed. All right, I'm going to explain some science to you. So I've been watching a lot of this guy's videos, right? Which include lots of really interesting math things, like how this particular math problem still hasn't been solved, or how this math problem got solved. It's got things like how sewing machines work, um, how nobody's measured the unidirectional speed of light, and this is something that I've I also came to learn about some time back, but not a super long time ago, regarding the actual nature of constants. It's circular, you know. They define the speed of light as the amount of distance light travels in a certain period of time. And regardless, I don't want to get into that. The point is, a lot of interesting videos this guy has, and I find him incredibly aligned with me in all manner of things regarding his affirmation, his skepticism, what he believes is legit and can be established as such, what he believes is not legitimate and why it's not legitimate and how it fails to be established, etc. um, Tom McGuire, Trump's not been convicted of rape. Maybe he ought to have been, I'm not sure, but he has not been convicted of that. Okay, Tom, you're going on timeout for being mindless in your politics. We get it. You hate Trump. I hate Trump too, man. Look, um, obviously, I expect a president to explain himself. Obviously, I expect a president to have justifications for things that convince me of stuff, not fucking tweets and having his head up his ass. Regardless, no more politics. So, moving on now. Well, the thing is, all measures of the speed of light are measures of it traveling a round trip, okay? And the reason for this is you can't, let's say I'm trying to measure the speed of light from here to here, right? I have a clock here and a clock here. To synchronize these clocks accurately, they have to be right next to each other. But as you move one away from each other, one away from the other, then relativity tells us it gets slightly unsynced from the other clock, right? And you need these things to be very precise. So the only way to do these tests is to send light in one direction, hit a mirror, come back, and be measured on at the end of its return trip. Okay, so uh, we have a measurement of the speed of light that presumes that light moves the same speed in all directions, and it's good enough reason to presume that, I suppose. But we don't actually, and in fact, uh, in relativity, when Einstein articulated this stuff, he said he measured it, he defined the speed of light and the equations accordingly, assuming a round trip measurement because he was aware of this problem. Okay, so the speed of light may move the same speed in every direction, but if it doesn't, we have no way of knowing. So, for example, if away from the center of the galaxy, speed, you know, the speed of light were 1.5 times our measurement of c, and towards the center of the galaxy, the speed of light were zero point 0.5 times, then we wouldn't have any way of knowing that, right? There's no way to determine that. No, he was convicted of a felony. I just don't think Trump was convicted of of rape, right? So the thing is, well, you can't measure the speed of light without measuring distance and time, right? So uh, we know, in fact, that even stuff traveling as fast as something can travel still takes time to go long distances, right? Well, that's a good reason to think he might be lying, right? Sure, there's lots of things, but that's not a reason for you to say falsely that he was convicted of rape. So accordingly, you get timed out because you can't handle being honest. So, hi, Gangster Lee. All right, so homie has his position. You know, he makes this video about how we don't really know for sure if the speed of light is the same in every direction, and there's no way to tell. So he additionally made a video about dark matter, dark energy, both explaining very successfully and in an easy to understand way why scientists prefer the dark matter, dark energy explanation, and the reality that I've been saying all along, which is that's just that's just silly. I mean, well, we have these equations that we know apply to the physics of the universe, and the universe is not agreeing with our equations. So there must be a bunch of universe we can't see that makes our equations right. But the thing is, now I understand a lot better why, in fact, it's preferred over the lack of an explanation or any alternative explanation, because and the extent to which it's satisfying as an answer to the exclusion of uh, of any alternative, etc. Okay, so I appreciate this guy's videos a lot. I learn a lot watching him, and and then there was a video entitled "Evolution's Longest Running Experiment." I think that was the thing. Okay, so we're segueing now from speed of light to the topic I actually want to talk about. What I first established was something human. Okay, I established that I, as a human, really like this guy, really agree with him about just about everything. Find he has a deft mastery of understanding that which he ought to affirm with a certain degree of confidence, that which can be affirmed only speculatively, or how to understand skepticism and when it's properly applied. Okay. Okay, Brandon, enough. Okay, don't spam. I'm not banning any pro anybody's. I'm banning people who are being divisively, aggressively partisan. All right, now it's going pretty well. I'm not gonna scream skibbity toilet. Okay, don't be a bomber clap. So let's continue on to the subject of evolution. So regarding the speed of light, I found his very interesting video that linked to something I had seen in a video a few weeks ago um, about the difference between science as a dogma and science as a practice. So the thing about science as a practice, though, is it doesn't provide us any information about where and when we ought to afford things our skepticism. Remembering that I'm not famous now, Dylan plays here, but now that you've spoken with me, you are. I don't want your sub predicated on me screaming skibbity toilet. Why don't you scream, uh, I hereby pay my phantom tax, O Giga Chad, for your gyat reduces me to a state of awe. Okay, you scream that and maybe I won't time you out. All right, so anyway, now let's go on to the subject of skepticism a bit. So, in other words, science affords too much legitimacy as a process purely applied to anything, including stuff that's just ridiculous, like flat Earth. Although the process of science would affirm our existing understanding of the Earth much more successfully than somebody trying to establish a flat Earth, it's also the case that one would like to not even have to engage in that process for things that we know are for sure true, right? All right. Now let's talk about evolution. So, so eventually I came across this guy's video entitled "Evolution's Longest Running Experiment," and he talked about these things as though they like prove evolution or something, but they definitely do not. They do the exact opposite. So, for example, there's this 33-year long study that has been working with bacteria and that has quote unquote evolved from regular bacteria to extremely antibiotic resistant bacteria. Okay? Now, because because this has been going on for 33 years, obviously, well, what does that mean? Does it mean it doesn't mean much of anything if we're looking at humans, right? If we did a study for 33 years trying to breed some quality in humans like antibiotic resistance or something, then it would take a lot more than 33 years. Well, these bacteria, though, in contrast to humans, these bacteria live 6 or 7 generations a day. Accordingly, this um, this study has now, over the course of 33 years, seen over 75,000 generations. The equivalent amount of time in evolution for humans would be 1.3 million years. So the point is this: if over 75,000 generations, the only difference these bacteria have seen is to evolve from regular bacteria to bacteria with greater resistance to antibiotics. And if the amount of change seen in these bacteria is equivalent to 1.3 million years of evolutionary change in humans, then how in the world did humans evolve over the course of the last, I don't know, 66 million years or something? Well, Aquesca, unfortunately, that's true for every species, right? So it's like what the mathematicians have determined is that unfortunately the math of evolution, at least for genetic drift, doesn't work for any populations over 100. And what we know about evolution is that the actual evolutionary pressures extinguish outliers of in terms of expression of the genome and move things back to a genomic mean or are responsive to specific environmental pressures, right? So if you keep pumping a bunch of antibiotics into this environment, but not so much that it kills everything, and just breed the survivors, eventually you get an antibiotic resistant strain of bacteria. However, if that's how much change you got in bacteria over 75,000 generations, then, you know, if we extrapolate backwards from that amount, you're not going to see anything close to the amount of change that you need to see in the amount of time that needs to occur to explain humans or other complex organisms. Remembering there have been multiple extinction events in the fossil record that have caused, complex organisms uh, to have to start over again, right? But regardless, the point is, for some reason, this guy didn't draw the conclusion that I drew from it. And we have lots of reason to think that what I'm saying makes sense. There's no, if evolution wishes to do the job it claims to do, then the number one thing it needs to explain is the mechanism by which things begin or end their evolutionary processes. If it's population, then how is it that anything evolves into a complex species? Because the population is so small, it's always going to be a greater risk of extinction than it is um, to go through this period of dramatic evolutionary change, presumably in response to intense and varied environmental pressures. So, the other thing to note is that, as always, the explanation of evolution is always changing, which is a good, like a really good sign that you're dealing with bullshit, right? When the purported explanation is always changing. So, um, like for example, if we look at this article here, this is in Forbes. So they're talking about this particular evolutionist named what? Dennis Noble, biophysicist, Royal Fellow Society. He says, okay, so let me start quoting here. Richard Dawkins, whom you guys probably know, a big evolutionist, would go on to author 1976 classic The Selfish Gene that popularized the gene-centric theory of evolution. Gene-centricism says evolution acts on genes, not on individual organisms. We are merely vessels for our genes that are driving evolution by Darwinian natural selection. Noble suggested evolution acts on the organism as a whole, with the organism harnessing randomness and variation to create and heal itself on purpose. In this reevaluation, Noble believes that purpose, creativity, and innovation are fundamental to evolution. He argues that we experience these processes as drives, but they are not purely subjective. They also progress non-consciously in other parts of our body. These natural processes harness randomness and unpredictability to survive. So, of course, there's no explanation of what that means, right? There's no explanation of what that really means. The conventional view is that random natural selection cranked up to warp speed inside the body during the lifetime of, well, let's see here. So for Noble, for the procedures of, say, the immune system comprise evidence that the organism is actively participating in its own evolution. It's doing natural selection. This is an alternative theory of evolution where cognition is fundamental. In this theory, the smallest unit of life, cells, have some version of intelligence and intent that allows them to detect and respond to their environment. Okay, so what do you see when you're talking about bullshit? Okay, let's look at the heliocentric theory of the universe as an example. I mean, the geocentric theory, or the perfect spheres. So there was a time when the church insisted that whatever else astronomers determined, it had to be consistent with the idea that everything in the universe was a perfect sphere, like all the stars, the moon, whatever, everything was a perfect sphere that God made in God's heavens. But the fact is, like when they actually did the measurements and shit, stuff isn't a perfect sphere. Well, in order to make it such that they were perfect spheres, they came up with all these concentric circles. That's what we see in evolution overall today. Well, I mean, I've got multiple arguments, right? The first of which is these purported longest running evolution study that purports to prove evolution by creating this subpopulation of bacteria over the course of 75,000 generations that are antibiotic resistant. Well, if we extrapolate from that in terms of time, we have no possible way of evolving, right? There's no conceivable way, if it takes that long for that little evolution to occur, that human beings could have evolved from a more primitive organism. So the thing is, um, if you want to convince, and here's the deal, I'm not unwilling to accept the idea that evolution, quote unquote, explains speciation. But then my point is it needs to meet certain criteria, right? It needs to do the things that an explanation actually does. So there needs to be a mechanism it articulates that's replicable and that we can actually create species. There needs to be some kind of time frame that explains how long would it take us to create species using this mechanism, make predictions that either falsify or validate, right? If in fact evolution explains speciation, then we should be able to articulate how many generations it took to get from meow to meow. We should be able to articulate exactly that meow did get to meow. We should find support for this in the fossil record in the form of some kind of intermediate species. With lots of things, right? So, no, I am not a creationist. I do not think that God created everything as any kind of explanation at all. I am somebody who wants an actual explanation for where species come from. One that actually works like science, where, it makes predictions that either validate or falsify. No, I'm not a professor. I mean, we do see change in we see change within subpopulations. In other words, we can create breeds, right? It's certainly possible for us to create breeds of dogs. The problem with that explanation for speciation is, number one, that doesn't actually involve mutations. Those are all expressions of fundamentally the same genome, same number of chromosomes, etc. And number two, all those different breeds of dogs and wolves can all still produce reproductively viable offspring. So they aren't different species, despite massively more differentiation than we'd see in the natural world. The thing is, remember, I'm not trying to negate evolution. I just want it to do its job as a science theory. No, I have no. Again, God is not an explanation either for where species came from. I want an actual explanation that makes sense. No, I agree, Aquesca. We can see environmental pressures causing variation within a species' genome over time. And in fact, you can do this easy thought experiment and we'll both agree what happens, okay? Let's take a subpopulation of bears that somehow gets stranded on an island. And this island is such that bigger bears can't get enough food to survive, but smaller bears can eke out a survival. And over time, you have an increasingly small population of bears there. Number one, that's not a product of selection through mutation. Okay? Those are all expressions of the genome in the status quo, possible expressions of the same genome. And number two, if those environmental pressures are removed, the pressures that only allow it to eke out a living, it will return to the genomic mean. It will not continue on to be a new species. I mean, I am addressing specific things, right? So in this instance, I was addressing Aquesca's peppered moth example. I'm very familiar with the example, and what we have there is a moth that was originally gray with little black specks on it, matching the bark of a given tree. During a period of the Industrial Revolution, when those trees all got covered with soot and became all black, the moths became all black. And then when the soot was removed, the moths returned to gray. So, what does that tell us? That no speciation occurred, and that in fact, in the absence of um, particular express environmental pressures that are within the genomic variability of the creature to survive, the existing genomic variability. In other words, those creatures had gray and then black specked wings to begin with, so they had the capacity for both colors, and thus were able to adapt genomically to that environmental pressure. But there's no indication whatsoever that that leads to speciation or to increased complexity, no matter how many generations we spend trying to do that. Happy 4th of July, everybody. I didn't say you were a believer. But do I believe there's a goal? Is that what that says? I hate how I get stuck behind the oh, there's a God. I mean, that's not relevant to the question I'm trying to answer, right? So it's like, do I believe it's after 6 p.m. where I live? Yes, I do. Why? Because the clock, right? Do I think that God has something to do with the universe? Maybe, but it's irrelevant to the question of what time it is. Same thing with species, right? It doesn't matter whether or not there's a God. What I'm looking for is a good scientific explanation. I'm not looking for religion, you know. Do I think extraterrestrial beings run the White House? No. What if the center of our supermassive black hole there was sediment? I'm not, again, what I'm trying to look for here are good science explanations for things, but in this specific instance, what I'm looking for is an actual science explanation for speciation. So questions of theological matters don't come into the question. That's not a science explanation, right? Well, I mean, the thing is, Aguesca, much of the purported evidence for evolution is begging the question. So it is the case that you've got related species, quote unquote. In other words, they look similar, they've got similar genomes, etc. Um, and that, and then there's a presumption that they differentiated by becoming geographically isolated, and that's bada bing, bada boom. We got your circular reasoning proof for it, for evolution, right there. You know. So the reality is we don't see quote unquote positive mutations. We hardly see any mutations at all, right? So if you take any population of animals, any instances that experience actual mutations are going to be fucked up in some way, like Fragile X syndrome, um, something like that, right? We see how a genome becomes sicker over time, but doesn't become different. If you say that it's because of a population limit, then what is that population limit? And what causes them to evolve before that population limit? After all, we should see, unless you're saying there's, for some reason, we're seeing vastly more mutation in smaller populations than in larger, but we just don't see that. If evolution were correct, we'd see more genomic variation within larger populations of animals than we do within smaller populations of animals. But we do not see that. There are plenty of species that are perfectly balanced on a point of along various vectors, like a giraffe. If it were any taller, it wouldn't be able to drink water. As it is, um, it has to kneel down to drink water because it has to scoop up the water and go like this, have it go down its neck, right? If they were any taller, they'd pass out. They wouldn't be able to pump that blood up to the top. How do you get? How do you get? Well, presumably, also, if they were shorter, then they wouldn't be able to reach all the leaves they need to reach to eat or something. I don't know. So it's like, where are the fossils of pygmy giraffes and stuff? I don't know. How does one get from a sea creature to a land creature? They all become amphibians in between? It just, the whole thing doesn't make any sense, right? I don't have a good explanation for how the pyramids were made, but I've seen that it's plausible that the Nile was redirected such that they basically had water going into where the pyramid was, and then they make it watertight, raise the water level, and that's how they could float up to the top all the way these things. I've heard that explanation before. Seems to make some sense. But I've also heard people posit that maybe the pyramids are from a civilization that predated the Egyptians. And I've heard it pointed out, and this seems awfully interesting to me, but that there aren't any hieroglyphs showing the Egyptians making the pyramids. Doesn't it seem like, since they do all kinds of hieroglyphic stuff, right? Explaining all kinds of their parts of their life, why wouldn't they document their building of these great pyramids? Well, again, we don't see positive mutations getting passed on either. In other words, the genome of human beings is largely unchanged over the course of all the documented human history that we can tell. Uh, so in fact, we don't see those changes in real life, and when we test them for validity, like with this bacteria experiment, we don't see the amount of evolution we'd need to see over the amount of time we'd need to see it in to explain complex organisms given the multiple extinction events and the limited amount of millions of years that we have had to actually evolve. So that's just being intellectually honest about the subject. But for some reason, people have a great deal of difficulty with this. Because trust me, it's like, I want an actual explanation. I want a real one. Evolution, is not a real explanation because it's had so many different incarnations. How many variations of the theory of relativity have you heard? There's one. There's relativity. Everything since came out, Einstein came out with it, has been validated. Like consistently. Time and time again, things prove what it says. So, okay. What about evolution? Well, Darwin himself, before his death, had moved away from his natural selection of beneficial mutations idea into something more intentional or complex or something, right? He understood he needed to account for the increased complexity. Where did that come from? Additionally, since Darwin came out with this idea, there have been many updates, adjustments, changes to it. So it started out as just gradualism with natural selection for preferable mutations, sexual selection. And then it became, it's punctuated equilibrium. Because fossil record now we recognize doesn't support gradualism. So instead, what happens is you have periods of extremely fast evolution and then evolution that after that goes into dormancy for some reason. What's the mechanism? We're not sure. Selection still. What makes it go so fast and then stop all of a sudden? We're not sure. And then there come to be these problems with the fact that we don't see actual organisms born with actually positive mutations to the genome, right? They're just expressions, phenotypes of a core set of expressions of the same genome, right? So they came up with the neutral theory of evolution, which then changed into the nearly neutral theory of evolution. But there was a population problem, so they came up with genetic drift, but that didn't work either over populations of 100. So now you've got this guy here claiming that he's got a theory of evolution that includes everything having intentionality without explaining what that means in any kind of meaningful sense at all, right? Since the first half of the 20th century, evolutionary theory has been dominated by the idea that mutations occur randomly with respect to their consequences. Here we test this assumption with large surveys of de novo mutations. What are de novo mutations? I don't know. In the plant Arabidopsis thaliana. In contrast to expectations, we find that mutations occur less often in functionally constrained regions of the genome. Mutation frequency is reduced by half inside gene bodies and by 2/3 in essential genes. With independent genomic mutation data sets, including from the largest, we demonstrate that epigenetic and physical features explain over 90% of variance. So, in other words, it's not mutation, it's epigenetic variation, that kind of genetic mutation, and just phenotypic differentiation. This is, what year was this? February 2022. They're still changing what evolution means in 2022? That's not how science works. I'm sorry. I would like science to actually be scientific, right? Sure, yeah. A phenotypic a phenotype is the physical expression of the genotype, right? So, um, we what comprises a species? Well, traditionally, our definition has been individuals um, that can produce reproductively viable offspring. The problem with that idea is it's never the case that two things that can produce reproductively viable offspring of the same species have produced something other than another individual of that same exact species. So if we define it like that, then it's impossible to ever evolve. So if we define it instead by a more modern sense, where we can do a genome map for a given species and say, okay, this has this species' unique genomic signature, and what we see are variations within that genomic signature, but we don't see things that violate the core tenets of that genomic signature, things such as number of chromosomes, right? Regardless, what we do know is that that's not how actual explanations work, right? Where it's changing all the time, it doesn't make any sense, you can't test it. When you do test it, it doesn't validate, so you have to make up some more bullshit to cover for that. No, that's not how fucking science works. I'm sorry, right? No, look, dude, for almost all parts of science, it changes until it's correct. So, for example, Newtonian physics haven't changed. They've just been joined by an additional thing called quantum physics and Einsteinian relativity, you know? Our understanding of the fact that we're in a heliocentric solar system, not a geocentric solar system, that has not changed at all, right? The only things that seem subject to change are shit that we haven't quite gotten right yet. Things like, I don't know, what causes. No, okay. Aquasca, then in that case, if you don't want to judge things by whether or not, okay, so there's nothing correct, fine. Is there, though, a standard that something should meet to qualify as science versus bullshit? So the reason relativity still exists as the predominant theory is because it explains things. When it makes predictions, they validate. We can test it. And when we do test it, instead of getting, we get ching. Okay? So can we have something like that for evolution, please? Even if you don't want anything to be correct, if you want to be an absolute relativist and say that no explanation, no matter how convincing it is actually correct. It's just conditionally correct right now, pending new evidence. Well, that's fine. That's not false, and yet it is also the case that for plenty of things, we no longer have to revisit the question of our explanation for how they work. That at one time we did not understand it, the species, and now we do. Right? There are such realities. And accordingly, what I'm saying is before any of us affirm the idea that we have an explanation for where species come from, especially if we call it evolution, we should first make sure we know what the fuck we're talking about, right? Because nobody I talk to about evolution who disagrees with me about it knows anything about it. They everything they know about it, they learn talking to me about it. The thing that's shocking is how come Vericidium, who's very much like me in a lot of different ways, okay? How come he can't see what's obvious to me about evolution? That it fails to do its job argumentationally. It's like when you purport to, I'm going to make some ice cream, and then you present somebody with a bowl of warm soup. No matter how good the soup is, it cannot be claimed by either party that the person did a good job of fulfilling their assigned task. If the criteria is set in advance that we want this thing to be ice cream, that is to be successful, it must be ice cream, then making soup isn't going to cut it. If our criteria is we want this thing to be something delicious we put it in our mouth, we're aiming for ice cream, but who knows, then fine. In this instance, what evolution is playing at is a game called science. And the criteria we use for science is that it actually explain what it purports to explain in ways that we can all understand, test, validate, etc. That makes sense intuitively, that at least don't create obvious contradictions, okay? But the horrible thing is that it seems as though the only people out there who are actively negating this insanity are creationists. And of course, people don't respect that. These people are clearly motivated by their preference for a God based understanding of things. And so, okay, well, that's fine. Whatever your name is. That's not explaining where species come from. So, I'm fine with your. If you want that to be the axiomatic truth of things, fine, but then provide me a mechanical explanation for species that works, not one that doesn't fail on multiple levels, okay? Like, it fails mathematically, evolution does, because we know that no matter how advantageous a given mutation might be, beyond a certain number of individuals in a species, it can't conceivably be so advantageous um, as to overtake the whole species and turn it towards a different species. I mean, it's like that's maximally realized maybe in humans more than any other, where we have like Genghis Khan be a big contributor to the species genome or whatever. But in other species, there's no way that a male can be so much more reproductively successful than its species mates. It just doesn't make any sense because they were born with some advantageous mutation. I mean, it's insane. And yet, I encounter nothing but pushback on this. And when I don't encounter pushback on this, it's not like I exactly encounter agreement. People just kind of like generally go, well, I don't know what's wrong with what you're saying, Eric, but it's got to be wrong because, like, all the scientists in the world agree with evolution. I mean, my point is, all the scientists in the world do not know what they believe regarding the matter. They can't articulate a good explanation about it. Okay. So just give this a little more water. And the other one too. I don't know. It's frustrating to me. I feel so disappointed by that guy. Disappointed in that guy. Because I like him so much, you know? I like him so much. And he's so good about being smart in the right ways. He negates bullshit in all the right places, it seems like, and affirms truth, justice, and a lack of skepticism where appropriate also. And this is the thing, it's like, we don't want to do this shit where, oh, it's just a theory anyway, so nothing's certain, blah, blah, blah. No, there are varying degrees of certainty we have to have about varying things, depending on their merits, you know? There are some things that are tautological. We should all be 100% certain about them because they're circular in their justification. For example, if all A's are B's and C is A, then C is B. We all ought to be 100% certain about that. It's tautological and conditional, right? I mean, it's not technically tautological in a conditional logic sense, but functionally, mechanically, it's tautological. It's true because of the definitions of the words, not because of any linkage to actual reality. The thing is, all ideas that we can lay claim to an objective or external status of truth for, also all statements regarding that, they have to collapse down into binaries in the same way that ultimately that if all A's example I gave does. No, I mean, I wish it were a theory with evidence, right? What it is instead is a collection of different notions that are sometimes are exclusive of one another and sometimes not, by a number of different scientists trying to explain away a number of different problems that actual data produce when you evaluate it against the purported explanation that evolution provides, right? Correct, Jeremiah Fix. Make a good point. No, like, for example, let's talk about plate tectonics, okay? So, why is it that the continents appear to be moving apart from one another? If you push them all together, they make Pangea, right? Why does it seem to be that they're moving apart from one another? Well, originally the explanation was expanding Earth. That makes sense, right? Like, imagine a balloon with the continents on it being small to start out with and expanding, they get further apart from each other, right? But that's not the actual explanation for it. That was an intuitive explanation somebody presented that made good sense. But what we were able to do is create some ideas to test it, right? All right. If in fact we have the continents moving apart because of expanded Earth, then all the fault lines should be going in like this. Whereas, if, as per the alternate theory that was proposed but not adopted until after his death, plate tectonics is correct, then we'd see jagged uneven, right? So, in fact, what we see is the jagged uneven thing. Evolution needs to do that. It needs to present a test that says, if this is correct, then yeah. That makes good sense that we can actually test. So donkeys, ligers, those are examples of hybrids. That's a little bit different than breeds. Breeding takes advantage of variation within a genome. Hybridization is an attempt to cross two different genomes unsuccessfully. I mean, it's successful in terms of the individual, but unsuccessful in terms of a species. I'm hammered for America. Woo! Good for you. Please help, Big Bird. Good for you. So, where is a live example of such a scenario? What scenario? I don't know. Hi, Acacia. If my sparkler is still there, you could use them today if you want. It's super hot outside, probably high fire risk. It's like when I talk about these sort of thing, I always wonder whether I've made any progress. I think sometimes I have, because nobody's giving indication of my showing signs of progress directly. In other words, rarely do I argue with somebody about this, and at the end of it, they go, "You know what? I think you're right." Rarely, but it wouldn't surprise me if a lot of these people go away from the conversation with a lot more doubt than they entered the conversation with. What's the progress you're doing? Well, the progress would be getting people to recognize that we don't have an explanation for speciation. We do not know where species came from. That's the correct position on the matter, and that we'd like to have one. I would like to have a good explanation, but it needs to be an explanation that makes sense. We need to apply to evolution the same level of scrutiny that we apply to things like physics theories or explanations for physical phenomena. And rather than simply assuming that there are two alternatives, evolution or creationism. Yeah, well, one becomes a different species purportedly when one can no longer breed with the other population of that species. But more significantly, we'd see something become a different species when we saw a different genomic signature, you know? So, like now, instead of having 10 chromosomes, it's got 11, like that. LSD time, fireworks are going to be great. LSD time? Oh, make me wish I had some LSD. Oh, well. No, ligers can't breed with ligers. No, they cannot. So the thing is, it's weird is there's a kind of simplicity to the world that people forget, right? It's like a deck of playing cards. Think of suits as a species. Spade is a species. This is an individual. This one happens to be an ace of spades. This one happens to be two of spades, right? And then noting that there are multiple species here. We've got just spades, we've got diamonds, we've got clubs, we've got hearts. And to conclude that the way that spades came about is clubs got all the way up to king and then went one higher. And that's how it became spades. That was the first spade. Except that doesn't make any sense, right? It couldn't be both a club and a spade at any point. It has to be either a club or a spade. There are no intermediate suits because the point I'm trying to get at is something has to stay unchanging as the set level thing, right? Species is the set level thing. To understand the thing conceptually, something has to remain the same. You can't have a deck of cards where every card is not a member of one of the four suits, barring jokers, right? Let's pull out the jokers in this analogy. And remember, this is just an analogy. It's an analog computing mechanism, you could say. So you can have any possible range of individuals. You pull some individual out, yeah, right? 3. You note that this is an individual expression of something. It's an individual expression of hearts. Hearts has to always be staying the same, or else you no longer have the capacity to say it's an expression at all, because then it's not an expression of anything in particular. It's an expression of something that itself is variable. Is it hearts? Is it diamonds? Is it something in between? Is it some new suit that we don't know of? No, it must always, definitionally, because of the nature of sets and instances, something has to stay the same. And that is, in this instance, it's the species. So just intellectually, kind of, I guess you'd say, argumentationally and philosophically, based on how words work, evolution immediately paints itself into a double bind because it doesn't recognize that You can't both say that these all these hearts are all hearts, and they all came to be hearts because at one point they weren't hearts and they were diamonds, sort of. No, because then you've destroyed your definitional foundation for the whole thing, right? Your definitional foundation has to keep the set names the same. And this is just kind of a language-based thing, right? It's not a it's not a science thing. Have you guys been seeing or hearing any fireworks? No. No fireworks here in Mariposa. If it cannot continue survival after mutations, what do we call that? Dead. Things that cannot continue survival we call dead. Reality wake up. Your life's going down the drain, DJ? Why is that? Do tell. Why is that, DJ? Why is your life going down the drain? I feel like the world's kind of going down the drain, or at least becoming totally unpredictable. You're alone? Well, I'm sorry to hear that, DJ. You're not completely alone. You're engaging with me right now here. If it was any consolation, you didn't become alone by way of evolution. Isn't that good to know? It's already 6:47, huh? It's later than I thought. So this is a source of great distress for me, really, is the only word for it. Namely, this reality where I see I see evolution as the flagship of an ongoing problem. Namely, you lost your job, DJ. I'm sorry to hear that. Hopefully you can get a new job. Okay. Self-creation, you're getting timed out. Obviously, a secular understanding of the world precedes a free and fair society, so free and civil society. So we're not going to support your kind of nonsense at all. Okay? Let's get rid of that garbage, please. I mean, this is what's depressing to me, DJ. I don't have nearly as much cause to be depressed as you do, or upset, or whatever. You know, I hope everything works out fine for you. Keep your head up. You know, keep fighting hard. Keep fighting the good fight, and hopefully everything works out. You know, what I have concern about is what I would call global dread. I have no understanding of what's going to happen going forward. When it comes to evolution, it's like a flagship of the reality that people don't listen to me, no matter how much they should, when I disagree with the norm. You know, no matter how well I explain it, no matter how convincingly I I make my case, people don't listen to me. So it's like I was 100% right about COVID from the very get go regarding what how we should talk about it, what we should say, think in terms of its risks, etc. In terms of what our public policy should be, most importantly, in terms of the what would happen with the what would happen with the attempts to make a vaccine, etc. But nobody listened to me. Okay, fine. Well, whatever. Um, but the key thing here is why didn't they? Well, because people were polarized to either one or the other side of the issue without preferring fundamentally to be correct, and and that's a problem. The same thing kind of happens with evolution. They see themselves as on one or the other side of an equation that has on one pole evolution, on the other pole creationism. And they see themselves as siding with science. But that's a problem, right? Because what we need is for people to prefer that which is correct over that which is incorrect, or else, well, I mean, I brought up the COVID example just to show what the harms can be when you don't listen to the person who's correct. In every instance where you don't listen to the correct person, shit turns out fucked up. It's like the Japanese internment camps. Somebody didn't listen to the correct person back then, right? And so then you feel all ashamed of yourself generations later. Well, evolution is an example, a flagship of this phenomenon where uh, correctness faces a seemingly impossible to climb slope when battling against polarization. Anytime you've got a given matter divided into into two groups that people can self-identify with, science or anti-science, progressive or conservative, like those kind of groups. It makes it impossible to be heard and agreed with, no matter how correct you are. It's very much part of my overarching global dread, along with which is what I generally call, and what I've been talking about of late, a breakdown of epistemics, that or contemporary challenges with ambiguity, right? Like, it's harder now to determine what we ought to afford ambiguity, which is kind of like the most um, it my position, I guess, is that it ought to be afforded according to merit, whereas other people would say either it ought to be afforded to everything or nothing, conventional. We could all use the healing gaze. All right, I could use the healing gaze. I'm feeling tense. I'm feeling like beaten up by these YouTube videos I've been watching in terms of, well, I get frustrated. I get frustrated because I was so enjoying this guy's videos, and then he like didn't see what I was saying, or didn't take my position on evolution, despite the fact that the evidence was totally whatever. It was annoying enough for me to start streaming. Here's a healing gaze for everybody. Okay, just take a couple deep breaths. Let the poison air out of you. Okay, the toxic poison air out of you. The air of conflict, the air of disagreement, the air of people pooping in my soup. Now let's just let it all out. Let's take a big deep breath in. only of healing air this time. There, we've blown out all the bad air. Now we're going to take a bong rip, then we'll do healing gaze. All right, I'm feeling healed already myself. And I appreciate Canaan's husband healing me. That's such an amazingly good job of responding to DJ L. L says, DJ, take a deep breath, eat a snack, get some sleep, start over tomorrow. It's okay to feel defeated. Just do the right thing. You will be all right. You are on the same planet we're on. In other words, I think what L is saying is, close your eyes, give me your hand, darling. Can you feel my heart beating? Do you understand? Do you feel the same? Or am I only dreaming? Or is this burning an eternal life? Happy 4th of July to you, Victor. Oh, cheers to you and your serenading DJ with Eternal Flame. I think you did a fantastic job. After I pull this bong rip, do the healing gaze, and again, I'm not sure if I already said this or not, but great job, Canaan's husband, bringing me out of my place of fist shakery. Ooh, I get fist shakery sometimes. Just like bread comes from a bakery. Evolution makes me all fist shakery. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light? Oh, so proudly we watch as the long around mama. Eric, did you really forget the words to that song? That's your nation's anthem. You should remember the words to that. Who's broad? Meow, meow, meow. No, Eric, take it seriously. Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, our purple mountain majesties above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed his grace on thee, and crowned thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. I'm talking about brotherhood from sea to shining sea. It's like Philadelphia around here, from sea to shining sea. Because Philadelphia is the city of brotherly love, that's why. Happy 4th, everybody. No, I'm not being sarcastic. I'm a very patriotic American. I mean, I'm not I'm not jingoistic, but I would call myself definitely a patriotic American, you know. And well, I maybe made jokes after I was done singing the song. I sang the song seriously. I already removed that once, so knock it off, dumbass. No, they're full of shining, Putty Cat. Both of the seas are shining. but only the Pacific Ocean is specified as shining. That's not why they're shining, Putty Cat. They're not shining because they're full of semen. The seas are shining with the bright future of America. That's what they're shining with. Anyway, the point is, it doesn't specify that both seas are shining, but I think it's kind of implied. Like, it's not. And I think it's also fair to say that it doesn't just have to be the purple mountains that are majestic. Just because we have purple mountain majesty doesn't mean we don't have majesty of other colors in our mountains. Our mountains aren't racist like that. I think I will play some America songs on the guitar. Is that all there is to this song? Let's see. All right. Here's our first America song. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night from the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies to the ocean with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. That's kind of faster than I expected it to be, so I messed it up. That's kind of a tricky one. That's a short song by Irving Berlin. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies to the oceans wet with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. That's kind of a hard song to play, actually. You know, it doesn't have very hard chords. They come fast and furious. Let's see what other 4th of July songs we have. God damn it. Why must things be so difficult? Let's try this one. Okay, this is another one where the chords come fast and furious. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride, from every mountainside, let freedom ring. What a hard song. My native country, the land of the noble free, thy name I love. I love thy rocks and rills, thy woods and templed hills. My heart with rapture fills, like those above. Let music swell the breeze and ring from all the trees, sweet freedom song. That's too hard to play. Those old English songs are hard, man. Like, why so many chord changes? What are you trying to do? Learn a most chord changes contest? Yankee Doodle Dandy. Let's try that one. I don't see that one. Let me look for it someplace else on the internet. Yankee Doodle Dandy Chords and Lyrics. This one, huh? Let's see. I'm a Yankee Doodle dandy, a Yankee Doodle do or die, a real life nephew of my Uncle Sam, born on the 4th of July. I've got a Yankee Doodle sweetheart, she's my Yankee Doodle joy. Yankee Doodle came to London just to ride the ponies, I am a Yankee Doodle boy. That's a funny song. I am a Yankee Doodle dandy, a Yankee Doodle do or die, a real life nephew of my Uncle Sam, born on the 4th of July. I've got a Yankee Doodle sweetheart, she's my Yankee Doodle joy. The Yankee Doodle came to London just to ride the ponies, I am a Yankee Doodle boy. That's a funny song. Oh, that's enough playing guitar. Maybe I'll play one more song. It's not a patriotic song. It doesn't mean it's going to be actively unpatriotic. Okay, but I don't know that one, Elle. I'm sorry. Instead, I'll play Gregory in Disguise. He's Gregory in disguise, hands in his pockets. Now he's walking down the drive. Averts his eyes. He doesn't want you guys to realize that he's Gregory in disguise, hands in his pockets. Now he's walking down the drive. Averts his eyes. He doesn't want you guys to realize that he's Gregory in disguise. He hates the lies, wants to confront the men, always telling them, but every time he tries, they only run and hide. Again, he isn't had a chance to yell at them until the bridge brings a new approach. Sneakily, he'll try to encroach upon the guilty, and perhaps he'll get the chance to yell at them. He's Gregory in disguise, hands in his pockets. Now he's walking down the drive, covers his eyes. He doesn't want you guys to realize that he's Gregory in disguise, hands in his pockets. Now he's walking down the drive, covers his eyes. He doesn't want you guys to realize that he's Gregory in disguise. That was fine. Well, so let's find out. Rachel's in bed, chilling. Thanks, Putty Cat. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Iron Lion. You guys, I want to be like Homelander. No, you guys, you are the heroes. How many of you guys watch The Boys? Boy, that show's it's a mixed bag of feelings for me. You know, it's like ridiculously, it's super progressive in its framing of the world, but it's also a super good show. So I don't know. I don't like good shows to get dumb by being political. I do think that's what The Boys does somewhat, but whatevs. You know, lots of asswipes of all sorts out in the world. From asswipe A to asswipe Q and everything in between. You just had your first 2 DoorDash orders? Oh, so you're doing DoorDash now? You won't be getting any orders from me. Why? Because we don't get DoorDash here. Ain't no DoorDash close enough. Traffic congestion is no longer a problem. I agree with Biden, actually. Putty Cat on this one. For me, it's no longer a problem. It used to be a huge problem. But as of like January 2023, I guess, it's no longer a problem for me. I don't know if I think Biden's to credit for that, but I would say it doesn't. He's not. He's not to credit for that. I think I know what is to credit for that. I had a sudden dramatic drop in time spent in traffic, January 2023. Pineapple on pizza? Absolutely. 100%. In fact, I want nothing but just shit tons of pineapple on top of the pizza. No, I want pizza, pineapple and meat, obviously. I'll even go pineapple, meat, black olive. I have not been to Los Angeles lately. I don't think I've ever been to Atlanta. Thanks, cats and kitty cats. Yeah, that's when I moved to Mariposa. So I don't think Biden can really lay claim to the benefits that I've enjoyed since January 2023. Oh, they've got plenty of weed delivery stuff. Not, again, not to me, but elsewhere besides here. There are plenty of um, delivery weed stuff. Thanks, Canaan's husband. Thanks. Well, they were disadvantaged by their insistence on wearing red jackets. They should have known better. It's like, hey, it's going to be easy to see us if we wear these red jackets. Well, good for you, Putty Cat. Good job. Way to drink American. I hope you've been drinking only American beer today. You haven't been drinking any German beer, have you? Yeah, it's almost enough to make me want to get an American drink, but I already have one. It's brisk, baby. Canadian bacon, pineapple, and black olives. Just toss them on there. A little extra olivey saltiness is going to be a nice compliment to the pineapple, just like the meat is. Of course, no pizza on the 4th of July. That would be un American. Because pizza's from Italy. Olives on pizza is Sigma behavior. I'm glad I got all my being mad about stuff out of me. Watching so many videos without making any videos, I get increasingly troubled. French fries? French fries are American. They may be called French fries, but they're definitely American fries. Freedom fries. Hot dogs, America. Hamburger, America. Apple pie is American. Philly cheesesteak, that's an American sandwich. You know. Eggs and bacon, that's an American breakfast. We don't go with bangers like the British do. We have bacon, all right? Eggs and bacon. Hash browns, all right? You don't want to get home fries, really. I think home fries must be a European invention. Clam chowder. Eat your chowder. Chicken tikka tikka. Chicken tikka masala is our national dish. Chicken tikka masala. Huh. Did I get any chores done today? No, I did not. Pretty good. I'm brooding. Look at that. Mm-hmm. Buddy cat. Take a gander at that. The Athletics are only 15 and a half games out of the wild card. They have gained 1.5 games in the last few days by beating the Angels twice in a row. And now's your chance, betting fans. It's really you should have done it a couple days ago, but still not too late. Make your bets now if you can on a sports book for the Athletics to make the playoffs this season. So you get pretty good odds on that still, I think, probably. But you got to do it now before they start on a string of amazing victories. Tikka masala, what's that? And for my ignorant American mind, it sounds like it's Indian food. It's banging. Curry, mate. It's banging. Curry, huh? I like curry, okay. I kind of like Thai curries, maybe a little more than Indian curries, but you go to a Thai restaurant, they're gonna try to slip some fish sauce in that dish for you. I don't think anybody wants to eat that because that stuff is gross. Hi, Maricela Viejo. It's an Indian English dish. Biscuits and gravy. Oh, you mean tikka masala? Tikka masala. Hmm. Well, I don't know if I've ever had it or not. Seems like it's a little warm in here now. Earlier it was a little cold in here, believe it or not, because we had the air conditioning for sleeping temperature. And I bumped up the air conditioning, now I'm feeling a little hot. So basically what you're saying is British Indian food is like American Chinese food. Like, if you go to China and try to get orange chicken, you're gonna be a little disappointed. Oh yeah, maybe it is warm because I was playing music, so it caused me to have exercise. You make a good point, Pretty Cat. You were wise in the ways of explanations. Have you guys eat papadums at Indian restaurants at the U.S. in the U.S.? I've never heard of it before. Papadums? I don't know what that is. Yeah, Taco Bell is American food too. But I think American Mexican food is less far away from Mexican food than American Chinese food is far away from Chinese food. A Kung Pao chicken, a chicken chow mein. Maybe not though. Maybe Mexican food is further away. I like American Mexican sit down, which involves like super burrito that has sour cream and guacamole, beans and meat and cheese, the whole 9 yards. I don't think you're really going to get that in Mexico. In old Mexico, barbecue. Barbecue is American food, sure. But I mean, is it really a kind of food? Hi, Ike Ojiamian. You know that fajitas, they're not at all Mexican. That's entirely Texas. There's no Mex to it at all. Texas just made up fajitas out of nothing. It does not come from a Mexican source. I guess they serve them with tortillas. That's what makes it Tex-Mex. I'll give them that. Fine. The tortillas make it Mex. A Dunkin' Donuts breakfast sandwich is what I need after a night of drinking. Are banquet frozen dinners American food? Probably. McDonald's is American food for sure. Well, of course, here is the U.S. Cardinals fan. Where else would here be?
Hi, handsome.
Hi, beautiful.
I love you.
I love you too. I love you with my emotional heart.
Oh my gosh, I love you with my emotional heart too. Like really, you have the spirit of America in you, and I love it.
Thanks,
I
darling.
really do. Like I don't feel like I'm missing out on 4th of July because I can hang around you and I get all the political freedom.
Well, I gotta say though, I've got something I gotta admit to everybody right now. It's
Oh,
the
no.
4th of July, and I am watching soccer. Is that acceptable? I don't know about that. Not only am I watching soccer, I'm watching Argentina versus Ecuador. Ugh. Well, because
that is a little bit less American. I like that you were.
yeah, this is what happens when I'm feeling un-American, Pretty Cat. I have to protect my breasts. Let's see if there's a more American sport on today. Hopefully there's some Boss Baru. Oh yeah, look, the A's game is on. When is this from?
Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk.
That's the question.
You can.
Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk. Oh, I see. That's not the weather at the beach boardwalk. That's the weather. Is this from today? Is this today's game? I wonder if they won again, and that's why they won 5-5. Yeah, this is today's game. Because last night's game, the pitcher actually threw a complete game. Amazingly, you never see that in baseball anymore. But the A's pitcher yesterday threw a shutout complete game. It's like nowadays you might even be pitching a perfect game, and the manager might still pull you out after 7 innings. That's how crazy pitching strategy or tactics has become. It didn't used to be like that at all. It used to be if your pitcher was pitching well, they'd leave him in. And way a long time ago, before I was ever alive, it was like oh, they played earlier. Oh, Potty Cat, god damn it. Never mind. You have yourself to blame for me watching soccer. Okay? It's all your fault. I can no longer even watch America's pastime. Dear God, my corrupted life. Okay, yeah, you made your dumbass point before. Okay? Self-creation. You don't approve of the West and their ungodly ways. I don't approve of you and your bullshitty ways, so fuck off. Picked a bad day to shit on America. like theocratic fundamentalism is preferable. How recalculous. Hablo Espanol. Today was the third one, Putty Cat. Today was our third victory in a row over the Angels. I didn't know that until now, but el que se mueve primero es gay. Okay, fine. Remember when England held their election on July 4th? No, I don't. What's your favorite non-American sport? Soccer. For sure, soccer. International soccer in particular, like right now I'm watching Copa America. I've been watching the Euros. I like watching those for men or women, the nation versus nation soccer. And obviously America is better at the women's side of things and not as good at the men's side of things. So in some ways I kind of like I kind of like women's soccer better because we have a chance to win at that one. Right now, I'm having amnesia and deja vu at the same time. I think I've forgotten this before. It's my birthday. Please read my name. Your name is ICUP? Wow. That's a strange name. My favorite non-American sport is Russia vodka. Fair enough. I don't like cricket. No. What other non-American sport do I like? Well, you could call, I mean, you'd be wrong, but you could call horse racing a British sport in origin, I suppose. I'm not sure if that's true or not. I'm not going to say that. Just shut up, Caden Show. Just shut it. Hawk Tua. Badminton. I don't dislike badminton. I'm looking forward to the Olympics this year. And that's the only time I watch sports like badminton. But I would totally watch Olympic badminton. I'd rather watch Olympic badminton than, say, diving. Diving's so boring. It's just like, watch these Chinese people do perfect dives. Table tennis, same as badminton. That'd be fun. I like table tennis. It's a fast-moving game. My favorite sport is to watch is, I mean, it's college football, but uh, I like, it depends on my mood, you know. No, not rodeo. I don't watch rodeo. I don't watch rodeo. Don't like watching rodeo. I mean, except for that one time that Simple Girl recommended the fine art of, I believe it's called cutting, where you section off one cow from the whole group of cows. And you come over here away from all the rest of the cows. That's kind of a cool thing. I always allow you to talk the Caden Show 23. I wish they had Olympic pin to tail on the donkey. That'd be a fun sport to have in the Olympics. Why not? They got rhythmic gymnastics, synchronized swimming. Like, I get that it's athletic. It's athletics. I'm not sure it really qualifies as a sport. It's not a competitive sport, really. You have to strain the nature of sports and measurement to make them into competition sports. As soon as you need a panel of judges to decide who wins, I begin questioning a little bit how much it really counts as a sport. If weed smoking were a sport, I could probably do pretty well, but I think I'd be at a bit of a disadvantage against younger weed smokers with fresher lungs. I think if you're going to have a weed smoking contest, you'd have to have it be involve pulling a certain number of bong rips, or smoking a certain quantity of flower, and then like doing a section of quick little math problems, right? Things that anybody can do, or a variety of little questions like that, or even physical tasks like stick this thing in the right hole or whatever, and then smoke more, and then no. You watched the lemonade chugging competition earlier, huh? It sounds like it's kind of dangerous to drink too much liquid sometimes. Stick this thing in the right hole. Yeah. I was envisioning like a puzzle where you put a shape into the hole of it, but if you want to be dirty and you're thinking about it, go right ahead, Putty Cat. They never made that sequel to Beer Fest. True. No, that's you're gonna get alcohol poisoning. I made stuffed jalapenos and steak for dinner. You should be bald already. Good for you. Um, I was about as bald as I get. I mean, might get a little more bald, but so this is a rather uneventful 4th of July, which is fine. I'm not huge a fan of holidays. No, thank you, Kate and Show 23. I probably will get myself a haircut pretty soon because my beard's starting to bug me. They could do board games for the Olympics. I'm not sure if Monopoly involves enough skill. The point is, Ananobi, you have to stay focused, right? You have to stay on task and keep doing the things one after another without getting distracted. That's the hard thing when you're smoking weed, not getting distracted. I mean, Olympic Texas Hold'em would be good. Do I like that show, The Boys? I do like it a lot, actually. I'm. It's like the only reason I have Amazon, really. You faker. Oh, God. Can you yellow card them for faking, please, you fucking faker? Oh, now he's fine. And now, of course, he's fine. After all of that, turns out he's fine. What fakers they are. Hi, I'm 3. Well, good for you. Oh, do I like boys? No, I'm happily married to my beautiful wife, Rachel. And she's a woman, a female lady woman. As were my previous wives. Good for him. I don't care about it. I don't want to talk about politics. It's too depressing. Given that it's the 4th of July, let's. Oh shit, I'm back. I assumed that I would have disconnected by now. Right. Wow. I was not really imagining continuing the live stream at this point. The power went out, you know. And accordingly, I disconnected for quite a while. Hi, Acacia. Happy 4th of July to you too. So I think I will end this stream. I meant to end it, but I mean, I figured that would end it. So no, I don't think that. I don't know. Power went out for a little bit. Anyway, I'll see y'all later. Have a great 4th. Bye.